Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Spencer Kobren, live from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining us. It's the Bald Show, and I'm back live in the driver's seat here, doing the broadcast from my home, which is currently in Los Angeles. And it's really, really great to be back. I'll give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. Sorry, guys. That's 888-659-3727. And look, if you're new to the show, don't know who I am, why I'm here, I'm a consumer advocate and educator for men and women dealing with hair loss. Sounds strange? You're not into it? Change the station. But I got to tell you, 2/3 of you by the age of 35 will suffer with some degree of hair loss as guys. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. This silent epidemic affects just about every household in this country and around the world. So there's a reason I've been able to be on the air for the last 15 years now, and that's because so many people are dealing with this. It's because no one else, well, some other guys have tried, but no one has really been able to, I guess, capture the importance and the significance of dealing with hair loss better than, I guess, this program. Better than, the guys who are involved with the show, my audience, my callers, our fans. I was on the telephone today for about an hour and a half with a very well-known hair transplant surgeon. And we were talking about the current state of the industry. Now, it's important that you guys know that this particular doctor was one of the first to really embrace follicular unit extraction. A large percentage of his practice is FUE, while he still does perform FUT or traditional strip. We were just talking about what drives this industry, talking about how the landscape has changed so much in the last decade, and discussing why the industry has evolved in this direction. Now, you're probably thinking, well, you know what? The reason it's evolved in whatever direction it's evolving is due to the science, due to scientific advances or surgical advances in hair restoration. I mean, that's what you would think. You would think that the reason why certain types of procedures are being marketed is because they're better. It's because they're newer. It's because they're cutting edge. Now, I've said this before. I've said this many times in the broadcast. And again, this is a doctor who does FUE. This is a doctor who, the majority of his practice, the people that walk through that door, don't want to hear anything about strip. And we agreed that it is the consumer that drives this field like any other industry. But what this doctor told me was that when a family member is considering having surgical hair restoration, of course, depending on the characteristics of this person's hair and, his age and his goals, strip is always what this doctor recommends. I'm talking about to his friends and to his family. It's not because it's easier for him to perform the procedure. You're talking about his family. It's because in this particular physician's mind and in most of the doctors that I speak to who are doing FUE on a daily basis, who even go out there and say that this is a superior procedure, they will either choose to have strip on themselves or suggest a strip procedure, at least one, to a family member. Because the bottom line is that no matter how hair transplantation is being marketed today, there's only so much hair that can be moved safely and effectively. And there's only so much DHT-resistant hair that can be utilized to really provide a person with significant hair loss with a very full-looking head of hair. Now, is that to say that follicular unit extraction isn't a great procedure? Is that to say that I am still not a huge proponent of this procedure? Is that to say that I wasn't the one who introduced this procedure to all of the North American doctors who are performing it today and to doctors in Europe way back in 1999? Is that to say I somehow have changed my mind about the importance of this procedure? No. What I'm telling you guys is that what you see online, what you see advertised, all of this shit, all of the marketing is being driven by people who don't know shit about medicine, who don't know shit about surgical hair restoration, who really don't understand what it takes to get the best possible end result. And I think this is a really important subject, a really important topic because, you know, I read what goes on in the forums. I've seen the trends. I know what's going on in the industry. I know that there isn't a new doctor in this field who is performing strip. They are all starting with FUE because that's what the market bears. That's what they want. And I'm certainly not telling young guys to go out there and get their heads cut open to have a hair transplant. I haven't done it. But when a doctor tells me, who performs almost exclusively FUE, that in everybody's hands, a strip procedure is really still the gold standard. It makes you think. 888-659-3727 is a toll-free number. I want you guys to give me a call. Anyone who's considering surgical hair restoration, and again, if you're under 35 years old, I would say don't even consider a strip. Start off with FUE if you really want surgery, but surgery is always the last resort. But I think these are important nuances of the industry that people just don't get. People are so convinced, and because of the marketing and because of what's being written about by complete and utter anonymous strangers on the internet, mostly kids, that there's only one new way to skin a cat. And this is state of the art and this is superior. And that is bullshit. Let's take a phone call. 888-659-3727. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This will be Joe Tronick from All True Studios North.
Joe Tronick, man, how are you? First of all, can you hear me okay? Is everything good in the studio?
I can hear you fine. How's my sound?
You sound great. I appreciate you calling in. I know that I would have loved to have you on video. I know you wanted to, get in there. You got your new studio set up. I was just not able to handle the video myself tonight because Andrew was drunk in New York and he wasn't going to work.
Well, he deserves after that horrible time that he had trying to get back from Mexico. He's still recovering, so we'll give him tonight, but he's got to be back next week.
Dude, I'm sorry. Who goes to Mexico anymore? I mean, come on. It's scary.
I don't know.
It's dangerous.
I've been there. I got friends that live there.
I don't know. I don't care how many Groupon coupons you get, how many free, flights you get. I'm not going to Mexico at this stage in my life.
Didn't he get a deal on going down there? Is that why he went?
Did he always get a deal? First of all, Jess is amazing. She is the queen of deals. I have to tell you, I wish she can teach common law a couple of things about deals, because she is. I mean, this woman. It doesn't matter how much money they have. She goes for the deal.
She's the power behind Andrew. I
admire that. It doesn't matter where you go. She will whip out a coupon in any restaurant at any time. And I love that about her. I think that she's good for Andrew. So anyway, you heard my monologue. You heard my opening. I mean, what do you think, man? Am I crazy?
Well, there's two questions.
Yeah.
Well, let's recap. So, I mean, the doctor you're talking to he does a lot of FUE, but he still says that strip is the gold standard. Is that what he's saying?
That's exactly what he's saying. He's actually doing mostly FUE at this stage of his practice. He said that no one, first of all, and these are the exact words, and I'm obviously not going to mention the doctor. The exact words were something to the effect of, if you happen to get a wide scar, you are destroyed online. So it's not even worth doing. Even though he believes that for many patients it's a superior procedure. What does that say? I mean, this is supposed to be medicine, and this is a good guy who has really good results and does mostly FUE. He makes more money doing FUE than when he was just doing strip.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, he's making concessions based on market demand.
Yeah, I can see that, and being one that works in a strip-only clinic, I mean, obviously I got a reason for saying this, but I'm also on record as saying that FUE is a great procedure for the right patient.
Right.
But, what you're saying is that, he believes that FUT is the gold standard, but then you're also talking about how the industry is being driven by consumer demand, and you're absolutely correct with that. And the reason why it's being driven by consumer demand is because of the few clinics that started out doing FUE only, spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt about what if, the what if question. What if you do get a wide donor scar?
Right.
When, the fact of the matter is, when you're dealing with a top clinic, and I'm not talking about my clinic, I'm talking about any of the top clinics, the chances of getting a wide donor scar are very low. Is it impossible? Of course not. But he is correct. He's like, if you have a wide donor scar, you're destroyed online. But at the same time, if you have one hair out of place, you're destroyed online. Right?
Absolutely, but there's a big differential. I mean, when you're talking about the way people present cases online now, the way that guys who are unhappy will go online and try to destroy someone's reputation. I mean, when someone sees a widened linear scar, right away all the language comes out. Oh, look at these hair transplant butchers! Look what they're doing to people. This and that. Who wants to deal with that? I certainly don't. I understand it. And they make it. These people online are make it out to be that the only reason doctors want to do strip today is because it's easier. They spend less time, because that's the way certain guys, especially at the beginning of FUE, promoted it. Certain doctor in Australia, that was his basically that's what the leverage that he used to get his technique out there. And you know what? It kind of makes sense. It's like, wait a second, this is. You're taking one follicle at a time, one follicular unit at a time. It's more labor intensive. Of course, it's easier for the guys who are not doing it really well, in my view, to just take out the strip, hand it off to their staff, and then let their staff do the rest of the work. And they could do 2 or 3 or 4 of those a day in some cases. But the really good clinics aren't doing that. The good strip clinics are, these doctors take their time removing that strip. It could be painstaking. It could take an hour in some cases.
Well, it can take over an hour. I mean, I tell, look, one of the things I'm telling people, like when I'm comparing, strip clinic to strip clinic, I have people calling me and say, well, what's the difference between you and Clinic X? And one of the first things I ask them is, well, how long do you think it takes them to take out the donor strip? And the answer is usually about 20 minutes because that's what they're told.
Right.
That's what the majority of the clinics out there will do. They just take it out and they're done. And then even in some clinics, they're done with the patient because the technicians are not only dissecting and placing the grafts, they're also making the incisions to place the grafts. And, back in the day, you're talking about how it was presented as being, more labor intensive and, the whole list. But I remember specifically getting into many debates about how, some patients or posters, were saying they make a lot more money with strip because you can do 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah, that's nonsense. All you need to do is one hefty price to FUE to make that up anyway. These guys they're charging double for FUE, so it makes no sense.
Not only charging double,
plus you're not paying
a quarter of the staff.
Right, you don't need the staff, and that's a very good point. You're not paying the staff, so all the bullshit that you read online, it's really sad when you see the way things have evolved. And listen, again, I am. And I take pride in this, and I also believe that I've created some monsters, unfortunately. I am the guy that really pushed for certain doctors in North America to start experimenting with the Woods technique. I said, this is going to change everything. Don't dismiss this guy. Let's work on it. Okay, so when Woods had held back and these guys had to reinvent the wheel, and then doctors like Rassman and Bernstein started doing FUE and wrote the first paper, and Cole and Feller and all those guys that embraced what I was talking about. That it obviously changed the field. All the Europeans then started to work with it, but sadly, because certain doctors were taking so much time to learn this and to promote it, they were doing it more in my view, to kind of get a leg up in the field. As far as, against their competition, to be able to get a leg up and say, we are now offering this minimally invasive procedure. And the marketing just got out of control.
I look at it like this. I think that, instead of back in the day when the battles were long and fierce and bloody, metaphorically speaking, I think the focus shouldn't have been on strip versus FUE. I've always been a proponent of it being good clinics against bad clinics. Clean up the industry and then bring in new techniques. But right now you have a segue from, you still have all these clinics out there doing bad strip. But now with FUE and God knows with this automated option or options that are out there, it's so much easier for Dr. No Name to get involved. Go buy a machine for $100,000 or $250,000, depending on the machine. Hire a receptionist, and you're in business.
Well, and that's
charging $10 to $15 a graft.
That's interesting that you said that, because that's another thing that we were talking about. And I said, essentially, you guys are putting yourselves out of business, or making your competition even more stiff, because now and this is a guy that is starting to embrace one of these automated devices as well. Just like most of the guys who are doing FUE, they're embracing some form of automated device, be it NeoGraft, Artist, or even something like the Safe System, or some sort of machine. That's involved in the procedure, even though obviously NeoGraft and the Safe System, it's a lot more user dependent. But because you're offering this as hair transplant specialists, as surgeons, guys who really understand the science and medicine of surgical hair restoration, other guys are picking it up who know nothing, and now they're comparing themselves to you. And the more involved these guys get with these companies, in my view, the more they're basically putting themselves out of business. Because honestly, now I'm seeing more plastic surgeons who are picking up NeoGrafts and Artist systems. It's going to be happening a lot more. And honestly, when you kind of compare apples to apples in the mind of the consumer, if you're looking at people's credentials, who would you go to? A board-certified plastic surgeon who spent years learning about, plastic surgery and also does hair? Or, and again, this is as someone who doesn't really understand the industry, or would you go to some, emergency medical specialist who does hair? Even if he's the greatest doctor in the world, if you just look based on credentials, people are going to end up going to the plastic surgeons. So a lot of these guys are essentially putting themselves out of business by being involved with these automated devices. Now, I'm not saying that these automated devices are the end of the world. I think that in the right hands, they could really, benefit some patients. But it's the entire industry is changing in a way that I believe is not benefiting the patient at all, even though patients somehow believe that this evolution is like the natural course and it's, just based on state-of-the-art technology, when it's not. It's based on business.
Yeah, well, based on business, based on the easy marketing of avoid the linear scar. Like you said, Dr. So-and-so, performing plastic surgery for the past 15 years without any mention of just picking up the new machine last week, and he's suddenly an expert.
And what's funny? And this particular doctor said, well, that's why you're always going to be in business, because you're going to have to go out there to tell the consumer who's doing good work and who's not doing good work. Now, it makes my job even that much more difficult. And, and listen, it's fine. I love doing what I do. But there's going to be this whole new crop of walking wounded that, we thought, it was changing, but it's only going to get worse.
I think it's already worse than it was 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
I think that there are far too many options, which is, it's crossed to the point where it's the choice is detrimental now.
Right.
Because you have multitudes more bad choices to make than you do good. Right? I mean, it's you throw a rock, and you're more likely to get someone that's going to screw you up than you are that's going to get someone that's going to do a great job for you.
I want to make it clear that I have no issue with the devices themselves. To be honest with you, I think the NeoGraft, if it's utilized by the right staff and the right physician, it's going to do a good job. It's just I've seen it work well. The artists, now that they're using a new iteration of punches, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they're basically the outer sheath is a 0.9, and then once it goes underneath the dermis, it kind of splays out into a 1 point something to get the entire graft out. So I mean, you're leaving an exterior scar it's getting smaller. Eventually, they're going to get to a 0.8. So I think that it could at some point be of benefit to people, and it's only going to evolve. But it's really about where you're getting your procedure done, and it's going to be so much more difficult for people to find the right clinics, because everyone is going to be competing against each other using the same, the same spiel.
Well, it's like I told you before, and I think we spoke about it on the show. When I got back from the conference in San Francisco, there wasn't just the issue at the bar that I was telling you about, where just to rehash for the people that are listening may not be aware, I'd gone to the conference.
And let me interrupt you for 1 second. Guys, I promise you I'll take your calls. Hold on for a second. I want to speak to Joe for a couple of minutes, and I'll put him on hold, and then I'll get to your phone calls, all right? So hold on. 888-659-3727. Go ahead, Joe.
So I get to the hotel where the conference being hosted, and it was a late flight I got in, so I wanted to go down and have a beer, and I didn't feel like primping myself, so I just threw on my ball cap and my leather jacket, went down to the bar, and I'm sitting there, and I'm surrounded by hair transplant doctors and people in the industry, and the bar is packed. It's 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone does. They want to go down to the bar, have a beer, and BS with everyone. And I'm sitting next to these guys. I know who they are. They knew who I am, but they didn't recognize me. And a couple more doctors. One of them was not a doctor. He was a traveling tech. And they're talking about this, these machines. They're talking about not how great the machine is. They're not talking about the results. They're not talking about minimally invasive, blah, blah, blah. They're talking about how much money they're making every week.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Listen, I saw a guy, and this guy's he's a good plastic surgeon. The result, or at least the post-operative images that I saw that this guy put on Facebook looked really good. He's promoting NeoGraft eyebrow transplants. Okay, so apparently someone sold him, the company sold him a NeoGraft. He's out there promoting the shit out of it. And I'm taking a look at his work, and I have to tell you that the guy absolutely has an eye. And I just happened to ask what size blades he used to make the recipient sites. Now, I'm not sure if he was being defensive or not. You never know what you're reading on Facebook. And he said he was using a 20-gauge needle, which is fine. I think it really depends on, the particular case. And, I prefer guys who use cut-the-size blades, even with eyebrows, maybe a 0.5, but whatever, I could tell that the result is going to be good. He really had the angles right. But this is an example of a plastic surgeon who does breasts, who does chins, who does, tummy tucks, who sees the tremendous amount of money that could be made just by purchasing an $80,000 machine that will be paid off in 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Or even less. I mean, he can charge in Los Angeles, he can charge $5,000 for an eyebrow transplant. So you're talking about doing maybe 800 grafts. And that is what the hair transplant industry is turning into. Now, he happens to be a guy that I think has some skill. But a lot of these guys don't. And frankly, a lot of the guys who are at the ISHRS conference who do hair for a living on a regular basis, they suck themselves. So they're getting into they're buying these machines. And you're right, they're not talking about the outcomes of the patient. Is this a better procedure for most patients? They're talking about how easy it is to make money once I have one of these things in my practice.
Exactly. And unfortunately, they're not trying to improve their own technique. They're not trying to improve the results. They're trying to improve the cash flow. And on the later on, a couple of days later, on the floor of the conference where they have the vendor section, they had their artist robot that was being demonstrated, and there's another, there's a NeoGraft, and there's another machine that's being, it's in prototype stage now. That's going to be similar to NeoGraft.
Yeah.
And something else graft. I can't remember the name of it. You may have heard of it, but
I know you and I discussed it, and I forgot the name of it, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's a Wild West now, more so than I think it's been in a long time, if ever, because the cost of entry into this industry has dropped dramatically, and the money that can be made has shot up dramatically.
No, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. It's not even just the cost of entry, but the barrier to entry. You don't have to know anything. All you have to do is have a little cash or have the ability to lease the device and have credit and hire a per diem staff, and you are in business. And that is making the entire industry a much more difficult place to navigate. So all you guys out there who believe that you're the guys, especially the guys who are posting online talking about, these antiquated techniques and these hair transplant butchers, believe me, that type of pushing and, that type of language has made this industry a much more dangerous place for your hair loss brethren. And it's just the way that it is. Joe, I'm going to keep you potted up, and I'm going to take a couple of phone calls. Is that cool with you?
That's cool with me.
All right. Let's see if I can make this happen here. All right, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Wow, man, I got to be like one of the first people behind the great Joe-tronics.
Hey, man, Johnny Ohio.
Ohio.
I recognize your voice, man. Long time no speak. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while. I thought maybe, you hit the lottery and you felled off into the rich hair sunset.
Well, that would be wonderful. And believe me, when I do, you know what's going to happen? You're going to go to one of my websites, all of them, and it's going to be a picture of me with a fishing rod, and it's going to say, "Gone fishing, mother effers."
Oh yeah. So what have I missed since I haven't been able? Every time I'd come on or get on the computer to look and see, there was always some sort of repost of another show.
Yeah.
So,
well, you haven't missed a thing. There's really nothing happening except for the fact that I see a rapid degradation, a rapid decline, a change, in my view, in the wrong direction, at least in the surgical side of things. And it's getting worse and worse every day. And you know what? Sadly, at least in this round, and I think Joe agrees, you can't blame the doctors. It's the fault of the consumer, and it's sad. It really is sad.
It's this instant gratification that everyone wants, like right now.
That's right.
And it's going to continue as long as there's people out there that's willing to pay money for, for instant gratification. It's going to continue.
And
I see a lot of doctors with these the
artists and
the artists and such. And I told you before that it's going to be dangerous.
But that's the thing. It's not even about. I honestly believe, and I'm not just saying this because there are doctors that I work with who have the artists. I believe in the right hands, especially now that they are improving the device using smaller punches. It's fine. It really is. I don't believe, and there's a lot of crap being said online from people who really don't understand how the device works. And if in fact, I'm not saying it's superior to certain other FUE techniques, but I think that it's getting better. And in time, it's probably going to be a really great piece of machinery. But right now, in the right hands, most guys who are getting it done are having very good results. However, most guys who are going to be purchasing this product, this machine, are not going to be guys who understand hair, just like the NeoGraft.
You hit the nail on the head when you said in the right hands. People that are doing strip surgery and they're doing other types of surgery that have been in this field for a while, they've got it down to pretty good science. But look at Joe Tronics, what he went through, what I've went through. Before it's the technology and the skill and the craftsmanship has gotten better. Any doctor out there with a scalpel was doing, the one to make decent money was doing hair transplants.
Right.
And what's going to happen is, again, just because a guy's a cosmetic surgery or a plastic surgeon, he's going to purchase one of these machines. And like you said, he's going to, someone that's done maybe breast implants or, brow lifts or what have you, he's going to be doing, or she's going to be doing hair transplants. And people are going to say, well, if they know enough to do breast implants or brow lifts or facelifts, then he's got to be good at hair transplants.
And that's exactly what it's going to. If the guy is credentialed, if the guy is a true board certified plastic surgeon, boarded by the American Board of Plastic Surgery, that really sets their surgical skill level at a really highly credentialed level. Most hair transplant surgeons don't have those type of credentials. However, the guys that are really good in hair transplantation, they're in the trenches. They have the hours. They have the skill and the time and the practice. So I'm hearing some feedback. I don't know if that's from you or
I think it was on your end.
Yeah.
But, Spencer, it's like Dr. Wong and Dr. Hassan. It would be like them doing breast implants or doing some other cosmetic surgery that's not their forte. That's not their expertise.
Exactly.
Not that they wouldn't want to try.
Right. Or at least do the initial exams.
Right. Well, hey, you got to try sometime. But
right.
These fellows like Dr. Feller, and others in the field, they live and breathe hair transplants. That's what they're, that's what they do for a living. And just because you're a doctor and you've done other surgeries doesn't necessarily going to make you a great hair transplant surgeon.
And listen, here's the good news. The good news is, and this doctor is right, the evolution of this industry is going to keep me in business and for as long as I want to be in business. That's just the way that it is. No matter how hard I try to put myself out of business, no matter how hard I try to clean up this industry, it only gets worse. That's just the way that it is. It only gets more dangerous.
But it's like any profession. Anybody that does anything for so long and they're good at it and they're on the cutting edge, just because you've got a carpenter that may be a finished carpenter, that's not going to make him a rough-end carpenter, or vice versa. I mean, certain people, their skill sets are honed in on one particular skill, and that doesn't necessarily mean that a carpenter is going to be an electrician, or he's going to be a plumber, or he's going to be and so on.
But I promise you, every doctor is going to go. Most cosmetic surgeons or plastic surgeons are going to have a part of their practice now that is going to be hair. That's the way that it's going to be. These new devices have opened up that door, and it's happening. I can't even tell you how many of these guys have contacted me to ask me my advice on how to start to market the hair end of their practice. If I just wanted to open up a consulting firm just to teach these guys how to market their hair business, I would make endless money.
But Spencer, what's going to happen? You're going to see.
Let me write down that idea first of all. It's a good one.
That is.
I already did.
If you need somebody to help you with that, I'm willing.
I know, man. Why not?
But you're going to get just like when the hair transplant business started out in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. You're going to get guys that are going to be hacks. I hate to say that, but even with the technology, even as improved as it is, you're not going to find the same quality and results that you have right now with the people that are doing hair transplant surgeries.
And Johnny, and that's exactly my point. But this time around, it's the consumer that is driving the industry, as opposed to, back in the 70s. Excuse me, in the 60s, it was really the physician out there taking out the ads in the back of the sports pages, making this so-called, at the time, cutting-edge procedure available, and putting it in front of people's noses and showing them, hey, you know what? Now there's something you can do about your hair loss. That's changed. Doctors don't have to do that anymore. It's the consumer that's driving the industry. It's these message forums. It's Yelp, and it's sites like Real Self, and sites that allow the consumer to really kind of drive the flow of information.
Well, the information's more readily available, and like you said, instead of being in the back of a magazine, it's out there more. So, the Internet has definitely made this industry prosper more, and it's given it more exposure. But what scares me is the young guys going in that probably shouldn't be sitting in a doctor's office, because their hair loss probably needs to progress a little bit more before they really need any type of help, like myself. I mean, right. I should have never been in the chair. That's what scares me. You're still going to get, I don't care how good the technology is, I don't care how skilled it is, you're still going to get bad work done.
Well, what's going to happen is there are going to be doctors who, they don't have the experience as far as seeing what's been done to younger guys, and they're not being trained by hair transplant surgeons. They're being trained by the manufacturers of these devices, so they don't really understand the nuances of surgery. They may not be that aware of how hair loss progresses, or that concerned about family history, because they're causing less scarring now, and they figure, you know what? Their job is just to move hair. Their job is not to hold these guys' hands. So there's going to be a lot of young, unhappy patients, and it's happening. I already see them coming in. Joe sees them all the time. These guys are already contacting me. We've received more complaints in the last year about follicular unit extraction than we did in like 5 years' time when it first came out.
But they're no different than the individuals that did really shoddy work, that scarred and maimed people. They're no different from those physicians. If they are saying, hey, I've got this machine that's cutting edge technology. It's virtually scarless and so on. They're no different from these other physicians.
Well, the difference.
Listen, here's the thing. Okay, back in the day, or the argument against FUT was, well, you know, no matter how good the result, you could still wind up with this really bad donor scar, really wide, right? But what people don't understand, especially with these machines, is that, oh, well, at least you don't have a strip scar. Well, the strip scar is turned, from 10 years ago, is turned into, what FUE will give you today, or with these machines, which is, in the hands of inexperienced doctors, is a seriously depleted donor zone that is patchy in appearance that draws just as much attention. And I mean, I'm seeing this with consultations coming in.
And it's causing these guys the same level of stress that they would have had with a bad strip scar 20 years ago.
And I want to go on record again. I'm not dragging FUE through the mud on this, because I think it's a fine procedure, again, in the right hands. But what we're talking about is, inexperienced doctors, inexperienced consumers that are driving this, and the repercussions of that. And what the doctor you're talking to, Spencer, said, you'll never be out of a job, and that's true. But what you've got going on is we got all these guys going online and sharing their thoughts and pushing the industry with FUE. What you have is the beacon of light, as it were, to spell out the real deal. What people really need to be concerned about.
And that's a good point. I'm going to take some more calls, Johnny. So I'm going to let you go.
Sure.
I'm going to let you go. Is that cool?
No, that's cool. Hey, it's good to hear from you. I hope everything's going well. Joetronics, again, you're like the rock star of the hair restoration world, and I'm going to hang up and listen to you guys, and hope to hear you guys next week.
All right, Johnny, listen, Happy New Year, man. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, you good hearing from you, man.
Good hearing from you.
Bye.
Take care, Johnny.
888-659-3727. The point that I just forgot what I was going to say. Let me see if I can remember it. Oh, you talked about me being a beacon of light. Yes, this is the situation. Every couple of years, by me just continuing to speak the truth, I get a tremendous amount of shit. All of a sudden, I am just trying to hold on to the industry for dear life. And then the process happens. When people start to see what they're talking about and what I am not a fan of, all of a sudden becomes a scam in their eyes. And then they don't say, hey, you know what, Kobren was right. They just kind of forget about that. And then they move on to the next thing that I'm probably not going to agree with, and they're going to give me shit for. But in the end, I hate to say it, and this is not to sound obnoxious, but I have been correct with every single situation since I've worked in this industry. That's just the way that it is. And it's not because I'm a genius. It's because I'm in the industry. I see what goes on. I have the behind-the-scenes information just like you. You know what's bullshit and you know what's not. The only problem is if you call bullshit, then all of a sudden you are not open-minded. You are trying to protect your turf.
If I call bullshit, I'm the strip guy. So I have a vested interest in calling bullshit, right?
Right. Apparently I have a vested interest in calling bullshit about finasteride. I have a vested interest about calling bullshit about strip. I'm somehow trying to save my precious organization. My precious organization can grow tomorrow exponentially. I could double it tomorrow. All I have to do is pick up the phone and respond to the emails that I'm getting from these people from all over the world that want to join, and I could say, this is where you send the check. It's as easy as that. People don't seem to get it. I don't have to pick up the phone and solicit hair transplant doctors to be a part of what we do. They all, for the most part, not all of them, but the vast majority of them, understand the benefits of being attached to this broadcast, attached to the IHRS, and attached to me. And it's extremely inexpensive for them to be involved compared to what they can make. So
it goes back to what I've been saying. You know what I always say? It's the dumbing down of the internet, right?
Yeah.
It's a devolving of the industry based on the false marketing, which is getting worse and worse. what we've been talking about, the number of doctors coming in off the street, plocking down $100,000 and getting their clinic started with no experience.
Oh, these cloning dudes, these guys from India. Not, I am recommending a couple of really good hair transplant doctors who are doing traditional FUE and FUT in India. But I'm talking about the guys that are all of a sudden they're getting on the message forums and they have the cure for hair loss. And if you don't agree with them, if you don't allow them to speak, if you don't give them a platform, you are somehow holding it back. But then when you do give them the platform, they can't believe Kobren gave somebody a platform.
Yeah, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
It's unbelievable. Let's take some phone calls, Joe.
Cool.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hey, man, you're on the air. What's up?
Hi, it's Doug.
Doug, what can I do for you, man?
Yeah, I had a question. I live in Chicago. I'm a hockey player, and I have a very tight scalp. And I'm kind of, I guess I'm kind of turned off by FUT because the hockey helmet would always rest where the scar would be.
Yeah.
So I was thinking
of
maybe doing FUE. I contacted Dr. Erdogan, I think it's pronounced, Osmed Clinic in Turkey.
Okay.
And he quoted me for 4,000 grafts, and I have minimal hair loss. And then I contacted Dr. Lorenzo in Manchester, and he said 2,300. So I was thinking maybe to go that route.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'll let Joe jump in too, because he's in the trenches, doing this every day. How old are you, and how long have you been dealing with hair loss?
I'm 29. Been dealing with it for about 3 years.
Okay. How far has it progressed?
Norwood 2, 3.
All right. And are you currently using any medication? Are you on Propecia, finasteride?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, when you spoke to these doctors, did any of the clinics mention the fact that you're early on in your hair loss? Obviously, you show them your images. I mean, did they tell you, or did they suggest that you get on the drug and see what happens?
Yes, they both did.
Okay. And your response is you don't want to do it?
No, I'm open to it.
Well,
how long do you think it takes to before you got to give it like a year?
Well, here's the thing. If you're open to it, okay, and it's something that you would consider, I always suggest that, and let people know, surgery is your last resort, period, no matter what type of surgery it is. Imagine if you were able to get benefits, and some people do, of just stopping the progression of your hair loss and regrowing, just a little bit of hair that puts you in a position where you may look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I don't need this transplant.
Yeah, that would be good.
And that's a possibility. I mean, what do you think, Joe?
I agree. I mean, if someone's willing to give Propecia a shot for a full year, especially guys that don't have a whole lot of hair loss to begin with, you're actually in a better boat than someone like myself, for example, where I had aggressive hair loss, to where you can get enough hair back to where you'll just say, I don't need surgery. And you save yourself, 15 to 20 grand, and life will be good. And just, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You don't want to have FUT because of how the hockey helmet would sit on your donor scar. Having been through this more times than most people, I can tell you that a hockey helmet is not an issue. However, you were talking about you have a tight scalp, so that is what should be leading you towards the FUE route, because if you have a tight scalp, there's obviously not going to be enough hair to address any real issues of hair loss. So FUE would be the preferred method if you were to go the surgical route. But by all means, if you're open to trying Propecia or ProScar in the 5 milligram form, by all means, give that a shot, because it can save you a lot of money for one, but also downtime and recovery and the whole 9 yards that goes along with,
and also possible complications. I mean, to me, and I think it's really important that you're willing to that you're open-minded to this, because it can save you a tremendous amount of time, effort, anxiety, possible complications. And if you're not in a hurry, then, surgery is always going to be there. Listen, you had consultations with surgeons, with clinics. They are in business to sell surgery. Even if they're the best clinic in the world, they're still in the business to sell surgery. They're not making money by telling you to get on Propecia and wait. Now, the fact that these guys suggested it is, I think, pretty telling that at least these are ethical, companies that you're dealing with, and clinics or advisors. I'm not sure who you spoke to specifically. You probably didn't speak to the doctor specifically. But I think,
No.
that's a good suggestion. And I think that, if you're not in a hurry, if you're okay with the way you look right now, and you're just concerned about the future and progressing, then, talking to your doctor about getting on finasteride might be your best bet, especially since you're open to it.
Yeah. Well, is there a difference between Propecia and the generic form of it? Does one work better than the other?
Well, listen, I am a brand whore. I believe, because I started off with the brand, and for me it's worked. I will not change. I know guys, and Joe will attest to this, who have been on the brand name for years, and then they switch to a certain generic, and they lose their gains. They lose whatever
Absolutely.
benefits. However, there are some really great companies making great generics out there. There's a company called Teva, I think they're out of Israel, and some other companies that are known to make really good drugs. And there are guys out there that are using generics from legitimate pharmaceutical companies that have fine results. So I think it really just depends. To me, it's like, if you start with a generic and things aren't working, then switch to brand. If you start with brand and things are working and you just want to save some money, don't switch. If you start with generic and things are working, stay on the same generic. Do you know what I'm saying? Just whatever you decide to do, just be consistent.
Okay.
All right, man?
Well, thanks for your time.
All right, man.
Thank you,
Good luck with everything. And don't jump in the surgery,
All right,
dude. Take it easy.
All right. Have a good week, dude.
All right, you too. 888-659-3727. I'll try
Good
to have.
question.
Yeah, I'll try to have a good week. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer, it's Robert from Maryland.
Robert from Maryland. What can I do for you, dude?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being back on the air. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, you saved me. I've been listening to you since the days of WJFK back in the late 90s.
You're kidding me.
No, I am not. 1998,
Wow.
I believe, when I started listening to you on JFK.
I was a young, good-looking lad back then, but go ahead.
Yeah, you and me both. But anyway, I think I was about 28 back then when I started listening to you, and now here we are, and I'm turning 45 coming up. And I just want to let you know that these listeners need to listen to you, because back when I was in my late 20s, you guided me away from Dr. Brandy, and I'm sure that's a bad name in your mind and my mind as well. And I was probably in Norwood 1.5, maybe 2 at the time. And you talked to me about Propecia and possibly getting on it, and I think it had just received FDA approval at that time.
Right. Well, let's see. When I was on JFK, I'd already been on the air for 2 years before I was put on JFK. So it was approved in 98. Okay. And this was like in 2000 when I probably spoke to you around then.
Okay, all right. So that's probably about right.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2014, and I'm still on the drug. Never had to have a hair transplant. And for the most part, I've probably maintained, 70%, 75% of my hair.
Sure. I know people think, in this day and age, people think I'm out of my mind still talking about it because of all the stuff you read online. But you come from an era when, this information or this, this fear wasn't out there, and it wasn't being perpetuated on the internet. And guys were just going to their doctors, getting prescriptions, and taking the drugs, and not experiencing, in most cases, any side effects, and benefiting from the drug.
Absolutely.
And just as a side note, talking to this doctor that I was speaking with today, he said that one of the most difficult things for him to do is have the finasteride or the Propecia conversation with young patients because they don't want to hear it. He tries to explain how important it is if they really want to win this battle. But he also says that he has to kind of pull back because he doesn't want to be responsible for these guys having any adverse side effects and then blaming him, thinking that they were forced into using the drug. Young guys today are doing themselves, in my view, and I'm very honest about this, even with the death threats that I get from some of these guys, they're doing themselves a tremendous disservice by not considering and really doing their research when it comes to this drug, because you are a prime example of what early intervention can do and how it could change your life.
Yes, I agree with you, Spencer. And, I haven't had one side effect from this drug. And like you always say, hey, 40 years from now or 30, whatever it is, who knows what'll happen.
Right.
But as far as everything else goes, I'll trade the time I've had with all this hair and no worries for that if it ever comes to fruition. But in my mind, I've never experienced any of these side effects. I think most of them are overblown and, like you said, nothing but hype of the internet.
Well,
and it's a shame that it's out there because, you guided me way back when, and, I'm one of your success stories, and I think you do us all a great service by this show, and I'm really happy you're back.
Well, you know what, man? I really appreciate you calling, and I'm really glad that I was able to help you way back in the day. And I think it's a real testament to the importance of, I think, everyone kind of sticking around and having, for the young guys to have the ability to hear your story. You were listening to me 14 years ago, and you're able to tell your success story. And there are hundreds of thousands of guys out there just like you who...
Absolutely. You know what, Spencer? That Dr. Brandy wanted to cut me way back when there was really no reason to cut me.
Your life would have been destroyed, in my view.
I totally agree with you. I had a consultation with him. I called you that night, or not that night. You were on Sunday nights. I called you that weekend, I should say, and you said, hey, listen, look into this first. It's not a guy I would go to, blah, blah, blah. And, again, I have nobody to thank but you, and I appreciate that. And I always wanted to call you and thank you, and I was listening to you online tonight, and I said, you know what? I'm going to finally call him and thank him.
Well, dude, I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what you can do.
Sure.
If you have the time, why don't you check out, go to Wounded Warrior Project and maybe throw them a little donation.
Sure.
And it's a charity that my late father recently passed away. Really was he's a World War II vet, and I think you can throw $10 to them and help somebody out.
Absolutely, Spencer. I will do that. And hey, you have a good night, and I will continue to listen like I have been forever.
All right, man. Listen, thanks a lot for the call. Take care.
All right. Yeah, take care. Bye.
All right. 888-659-3727. Look, I love hearing that shit. I love hearing these guys who really...
Yeah, it's fantastic.
They got it.
And
yeah.
What he said is it's being repeated, or what he went through is being repeated by thousands of guys. There's so many more guys out there having positive experiences like he is than what we hear about the negative issues online.
Dude,
right?
Listen, I'm not. Maybe this is TMI, but I am almost 49 years old. I wake up with wood just about every day unless I'm drinking heavy. I have not had an issue that I'm aware of, and if there is an issue, then I'd probably have some sort of a problem, as far as wanting too much sex, and. It's only been great for me, and it's been great for every one of my peers. Every friend that I have now is taking the drug. Guys that I grew up with, in grammar school with. I would never have recommended any of this. I would not have told these guys who I love to take a drug that I truly believed can cause them damage.
Yeah, likewise. I got my best friend on it 12 years ago, and when I first learned about it myself, and it's just with any medication you can have side effects, and I mentioned this before. Statistically, when you're talking about people having a good experience with something versus a bad experience, and this statistic came out before the internet was really an everyday thing that we used. if someone had a bad experience with something, they'd tell 10 people word of mouth. If they have a good experience, they'll tell 2 people word of mouth. And now you have the internet, and it just explodes exponentially.
Let's look at the chat. Look at the chat room right now, and it's fine. I think people have the right to get their information out there, and I believe that there is a subset of guys who really are suffering with these adverse side effects. But
of course,
they take the opportunity to spam, Andrew's chat. I mean, put it out there, say that, that this is a possibility. We talk about the side. I suggest that if people really are hyper concerned about the drug, check out Propecia Help. There are people on there who really are suffering and who believe they are suffering. I don't know what percentage are suffering, but, the information's out there. 888-659-3727. Let's take another phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, Spencer. This is Dave Artista. How you doing?
Dave, I am fine.
Dave.
How are
Hello.
you?
Hey, Joe.
Apparently, people don't think it's the real Joe Tronic on the phone. I guess maybe it's his voice is different on the phone, but it is.
Maybe they can't see me. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, it's the real McCoy, man.
Well, I'm glad to hear him.
So what's happening? What can I do
How
for
you doing, buddy?
I was just calling to talk a little context when it comes to hair loss. To be positive.
Good.
Just imagine if there were guaranteed peace throughout the world, and we never had to worry about war. Personally, I find that to be much more important than any cure for hair loss.
Sure.
You do?
Absolutely.
Now, that's not to say that
don't tell Joe that though.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that I don't wish for a better hair loss treatment or a cure. I do, and I'm in a positive obsession with it like you are. But I just won't allow my hair loss to ruin my life, because that would have an impact on not just me, but it would also impact the people I love, my kids.
Oh, absolutely. I think,
Sure.
and I'm glad that you said that, because we were just talking about Joe, and I know people in the chat room were talking about Joe. I kind of figured this out a long time ago, and you guys can disagree with me if you think I'm wrong. But I think Joe not only suffers from severe depression, but I think he suffers from something that's called narcissistic personality disorder. Now, everyone thinks that narcissists are people who they're totally in love with themselves. That's not necessarily, that's just one aspect of narcissism. In narcissistic personality disorder, it's really more about the entire world revolving around you, around the person, whether it's their issues, whether it's their successes, whether it's their failures, whether it's their depression, whether it's their disease. And it's difficult for them to empathize with others, including their children, for instance, or try to avoid keeping their negativity out of the family structure. And Joe is a prime example of this, because Joe has allowed his illness and his hair loss to, kind of get the better of him, and, really, he really got these poor kids involved and his poor wife involved. And when I would hear Vincent get on the phone and talk about his dad being a sufferer, or hear stories of Joe telling me that his kid walks around with a minoxidil bottle filled with water, and now he's concerned that he's going to be a sufferer. Think of the damage and think about how selfish that is of Joe to do to his kids. And I've told Joe this on the air. I've told him face to face. It's the way that it is. So I think the fact, saying what you said speaks volumes for the type of person you are, and the fact that, you have a healthy outlook in life. Hair loss sucks. You want to do something about it, but you're not going to let it destroy the life of your life and the life of your kids and your family.
Yeah, you have to not allow it to ruin your life. You can't. It doesn't make sense to.
No, absolutely, it doesn't. But I get it. I get the deep, the darkness, the depression, the feeling of being uncomfortable in your own skin. all that stuff. But to me, it's like, you know what? Figure out a way to deal with it. To figure out a way to deal with it with what we have to work with today. If the drugs don't work for you, okay. If you don't do well with a transplant, then try a hairpiece. Do whatever it takes to make yourself as comfortable as possible in this life, and to not make other people's lives miserable.
Do what you can to distract to distract from the issue that's bothering you, right?
Right.
I mean, what Spencer's saying is absolutely true. You have to do something to move past it. And it's like in my own situation, I used to always say, when you go through a really bad hair transplant, and this can apply to anything, but in this context, when you go through a really bad hair transplant like I did, or like Joe did, or like hundreds of other guys have, thousands, you usually do one of two things. You either withdraw into yourself and become a hermit living under a hat and making excuses not to, go out in social events and what have you, or you actually turn around and you do the exact opposite and you overcompensate with, what they call personality plus, and be almost kind of over the top. And, to try to, and I say that because that's what I did.
Right. In
my early 20s. I mean, it was devastating for me, but I was never in a position with a job where I could wear a hat, where I could hide in a cubicle or something. I was always bartending, waiting tables, things like that, and I had to present myself. And so, how do you do that if you feel like you're the ugliest thing on the planet? You have to distract with, a sleight of hand personality tricks.
Humor,
right?
and just,
Yeah, exactly. Jokes and...
making people feel comfortable around you, making them, forget what you're dealing with. Yeah.
That's a great example. I mean, he had no choice but not to not wear a hat in the public, in a forum. With me, at my job, I can wear a hat. I wear a hat wherever I go. But in different get-togethers where I can't wear a hat, that's okay. I'll do it. I'll deal with that.
Yeah,
that's
what
right.
Can I do?
That's right. What can you do? Well, you have a great outlook.
My life be ruined. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And what I like about what I like about you, I mean, what do you want me to call you on the show, Dave or Artista? What do you want me to call you?
You can call me Dave.
All right. What I like about you, Dave, is that, I mean, you're out there, you're trying to help these young guys, you're talking about your experience online, you're being very positive, you are, you're willing to take chances and discuss those chances and kind of chronicle what you're doing with Dr. Wesley and finasteride. That's important stuff. Mm-hmm. You're not sitting there, woe is me. Listen, I talked, when I started the show years ago, when I wrote the book, the first thing I let people know is how hair loss affected me, how depressed I was having to deal with hair loss, how it affected me when women that I hadn't seen in a while mentioned it, or friends, or, my being uncomfortable in bars and stuff like that, where, you talk about overcompensating. Dude, I was out just trying to, drink and chat up any hot chick I could, because in my mind, being able to land these women made me feel like, you know what? I could do whatever I want, even though I have a crazy hairstyle, even though people make fun of the fact that I'm losing my hair. I certainly self-medicated, but the truth of the matter is I'd wake up in the morning and I was depressed because I didn't know where this was leading. I didn't know how bad it was going to get, and everybody was trying to rip me off, or just give me a bad hair transplant, especially in the late '80s. I just felt lost. So I understand it. I understand it as well as anybody, except I didn't have to go through the process like Joe Tillman, who ended up having a transplant way before he needed a transplant and went to the wrong person. Twice, and that started this whole downward spiral, which is very common. I somehow had the wherewithal to step back and say, this doesn't look good. This is not something I want. And this is even before I understood about you.
You were a smart guy. You saw. I mean, I have no problem admitting I look back now, I was a dummy. It's like I asked my first intelligent question before my second surgery, where I said, I swear to God, it was my first intelligent question to the doctor, was, what happens if I lose more hair?
Right. Right.
I already had one surgery, and
Yeah.
his answer was, oh, you won't lose more hair, not until not until you're 50 years old, and then you can come back and see me.
Yeah. Yeah.
22 years old, right?
Yeah, I know. Dude, Dr. Norman Orenreich told me to try a few transplants. He said, just try. If you were my own kid, I would suggest it to you. Just try a few. If you don't like them, you don't have to come back. But what he neglected to tell me is that he would have left me with these 4-millimeter plugs in my temples. I would have had these horns, and I probably would have suffered some shock loss, and I would have been set up to be a man-made freak dealing with the aftermath of his handiwork for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow I stepped back and I said, you know what? This is not for me.
And when you do go through this, I mean, it's like, being 22, you're an adult, but let's face it, you're not really grown up.
No,
right?
you're a kid.
And you're still trying to find still trying to, find where to stick it. And,
right.
And now you're having to deal with this other issue that completely takes you away from the normal development that you'd be going through.
Yes.
Right. So it's. I mean, you could compare it to growing up fast, I guess. But it's hell.
Well, you grew up fast, but
we all have a story.
You grew up fast, but it also stunts you socially to a certain degree.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why, for sure. That's why we see so much over-the-top frustration on the forums and negativity, because there are a lot of young guys that just don't know what to do. They're freaking out,
and they are completely stunted. They spend their lives on the forums. This is how they communicate. So they communicate their anger, their frustration. They have this sense of anonymity, and they just feel like, screw it. The world screwed me. I am going to go out there, and whether it's defame people or just the fight with each other.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, listen, there's a lot of forums out there. I got to tell you, the hair loss forums are probably some of the angriest. And they're not great places. But you know what? I think that they're still necessary. They still help people. The guys who are able to read between the lines and get past all the bullshit, they're able to be helped. And guys like you, Dave, are helping a lot of people. Listen, we're gonna take. Did you have anything specific that you wanted to say besides just chiming in, or because I want to take a break and then we're going to take some more phone calls.
Well, can we talk about Joe from Staten just for a second?
Yes, of course.
I mean, I've had a long conversation, a friendship with him now. It's been quite a while, and I've been trying to help him all this time, and it's so frustrating.
I actually think Joe is disco in the forum.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing myself.
Yeah.
Joe, you're out there and you're listening, of course. First of all, Joe gets very angry because he thinks he was fired as a co-host. Can you set the record straight, Spencer?
I'll set the record straight. First of all, he was never a co-host. Joe has been, I think Joe doesn't understand, and it pisses me off. It really does, because I don't think he understands how gracious I've been over the years to allow him to be part of the show because I believed it was that important to him. And I get a little angry at times when I think about it, but then of course I'm just like, listen, it's Joe, he's got problems, and he's a friend, and I forgive him. But it's hard for me to really understand that he would be upset or angry in any way. He wasn't working for the broadcast. He was a guy that became a part of the show kind of as a whack packer initially, but also because I believed that there's a part of Joe in everybody. So no matter
That's
what
a great analogy.
But no matter what my producer said when I was on the radio, no matter what the radio stations said, he was boring. It's the same shit every time with him. Why do you keep allow him to call the show? I felt for the guy. I had empathy, and I knew that it was important for him to be a part of things. So I wanted that for him. You know,
Right.
and that's just the truth. But when
I can understand that.
But so when I hear him say things, or talk to people about certain things, or get upset that I'm in New York dealing with my father and everything I have to deal with, and because I'm in business to some degree with Andrew, and we have dinners and stuff like that, that he's not invited, and then he gets he goes nuts. I mean, the whole thing is like, Jesus, what have I created here? Why have I've allowed him to be involved in this show and my life to some degree, and I just don't think he appreciates that. And I'm not saying it's any great shakes to be part of my life, but I'm just saying I did it for him, not for me. I just had to put it out there. I just had to put it out there.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I've had the same frustrations and at times angers. And Joe from Staten, I know you're listening. Don't take this offensively. I'm bringing this up because I'd like to help you. I'd like to see him look at his life in a better light than he has been.
I wish it was possible. I offered him opportunities to have free surgical hair restoration, on the Ball of Truth, get him hair pieces from anywhere he wanted to go. Opportunities that most people wouldn't be afforded. But he can't change. At least he's not shown that he's able to change yet. But you never know.
Because he realizes that hair transplants will not give you a full head of hair. Finasteride will not give you a full head of hair. So he wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and Bald Jerry, I appreciate. I'm reading the chat that you believe that Joe attracts more listeners than people realize. I believe that Joe attracts a certain segment of the hair loss community and listeners, especially when we're on radio. I think that people, they kind of felt better about themselves, and that's another reason why I kept Joe on for so long. They're like, well, you know what? I'm fucked up, but at least I'm not as bad as this dude. And
I was going to say something similar to that. I was going to say I'm glad I have a good friendship with him, because it makes me feel better about myself, knowing that I'll never fall into that category of, how would you define it? That negative outlook about everything.
It's a dark place. It's a dark place.
Yeah.
But with all of that said, always have a soft spot in my heart for Joe. I think he's a good he's a good person. I think he's a kind person. I think that he's always meant well. I just don't think he realizes, like he talks about his loyalty to the show. I don't think he realizes, that I believe that the show was an important part of his life, and I wanted him to have that. It was kind of like a gift from me, even though people would say, and Joe Tillman, you know what I'm talking about, because a lot of people in the industry also would be like, why do you keep this guy? Why do you allow this guy to call every week? It brings down the show. And you know what? I just felt like, how do I not? But things change, and
it's nice to,
go ahead.
Yeah, things do change, and it was nice to see that he connected with Jerry, and they became friends.
I like Jerry. I think Jerry's funny. He's a funny dude. I love the fact that he's very open about his. I didn't even know what to call it. I mean, I know that Joe says
inclination?
I know that Joe says that they are transgendered people. I don't know if that's exactly.
I don't think they're serious about that.
The case.
Are they?
They're serious about it, dude. They are serious about it.
Okay.
And that's cool. It is what it is. Live and let live. I think it's wild that they found each other through the Ball of Truth, though.
Well, that's what you do, Spencer. You're a bringer together of people.
That's what I do. That's my job. That's my gig. Listen, Dave, thanks for the call, man. I'm going to take a quick break. Just like I got to take a piss. All right.
Yeah, of course. And I'll say goodbye. And Joe Tillman, hi and goodbye.
All right.
Well, everybody,
good hearing from you.
And Dave, keep doing what you're doing on the forums. You're doing a great job. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll try my best. Thank you.
Take care. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Give us a call here at the Ball of Truth. We have about 30 some odd minutes left on the broadcast. We do have a full board, but if you want to give us a call, actually now that Dave dropped, we don't have a full board, so we do have one line open if you want to give us a call at 888-659-3727. The guys who have been holding on, I promise you, I will get to your calls right after this. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back. Well-needed break. 888-659-3727, toll-free number. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth. Guys, of course, if you're new to the show, it's the Hair Loss Show. You can check us out on iTunes Radio, Stitcher Radio. We will soon be on iHeartRadio. And that's some of the reason why, I have to get my thoughts straight, I'm changing some of the elements of the program is because of iHeartRadio, because certain things cannot be on there. So, pretty exciting stuff. Obviously, you can watch us on Ustream.tv, Daily Motion, GFQ, the GFQ network, guysfromqueens.com, or GFQ network. .tv or GFQ. What is it? You guys, you talk about it. Write it in the in the chat room, dudes. I can't remember what's happening. 888-659-3727. Decided to drink a little bit also. After that, talk about Joe, man. Just I don't think people realize, it aggravates me. It really aggravates me that he, after all these years, it's almost as though he just doesn't appreciate the program, doesn't appreciate what I have to do, doesn't appreciate the fact that, what I had to do to keep him involved. Doesn't necessarily benefit what I do. Certainly doesn't make me any money. And it certainly doesn't help to keep things positive around here, which is what I'd like to do. Triple 8-659-3727. Let me pop up the phones. Joe Tillman is still live with us, hopefully, unless you hung up.
Still here.
Good. And you think I'm being overly harsh? Or I'm just. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you think I'm being overly harsh? I'm just being honest, man. I'm just like, after all the years, I'm just like, shit. What does this guy expect from me?
I don't think you're being harsh. This is something that you're trying to make some changes, and Joe is a good guy, but some people think that he's a bit too negative, and you're just trying to change things up a bit, and it's understandable. there's. Look, you've had him on for a long time, and he is associated with the show. When people think of the show, they think of Joe from Staten Island. But you got your changes that you got to make, and I don't think you're too rough. There's no way to take it easily on his end. I'm sure he's not too happy with it.
But I didn't do anything. I didn't say, "Hey Joe, listen, dude, you're fired." He never worked for me. I never said, "Hey, listen, we're making these changes, whatever it is." I did tell him when I wasn't going to be doing the show on a weekly basis, just so that he knew, because I was always concerned that without the show, maybe the guy would commit suicide or something. He would put that pressure on me. And don't think I didn't take it seriously. I did. I would think to myself, I get off the air, and tell Common Law, I'm like, what happens if I decide to stop doing the show? What is this guy really going to kill himself?
Well, here's something you can never forget. You can't be responsible for what other people do.
No, I appreciate you saying that, and you're right. But that's just that's my parents instilled this guilt in me. It's this Jewish guilt, and it's affected my entire life. Thank you, parents, wherever you are.
It's not just your Jewish upbringing, my friend. I've been in the same situation with people I've known in my life where they've had, nothing to do with hair, but they've had issues that have brought them down, and they just could not get past it. And they would come to me, wanting to talk about their problems, and it's almost like you can almost look at it from a different angle as being an enabler.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that.
And you have to know when to say when, because there's a point where you start to, I'm not talking about anyone specifically here, but there's a point where you start to get sucked in yourself and it starts to affect your life. And there has to come a point in your relationship with a person like this where you got to say enough is enough. And in your case, for the sake of the show, but also for your own daily, mental health, right? You can't dwell on this stuff. When
You're right, dude. I'm breaking up with Joe. I'm breaking up with Joe. I have to break up with Joe.
Well, it's, it is what it is. Slow it on saying that Spencer enables Joe. Bet Joe doesn't like that.
Yeah. Well, I listen. The whole thing is it's disturbing. I've done my best. I've always done my best for the guy. He knows that, and I just hope that he understands that.
I'm impressed with what you've done for the guy. Look, I've known you for several years now, and I remember way back you talking about helping him to find answers to his problems. Hooking him up with free surgery with a number of doctors or free hair system or whatever. And God knows, he's you let him on the show to air his frustrations.
Did I tell him I offered to fly him to Australia when Woods was was the big rage, and for him to have a Woods technique.
Well, here's the thing: you should be able to sleep at night knowing that you have done what you can.
Well, I have. You know what? Let's change the subject. Let's take some phone calls. Let's see what's going on.
I need a drink.
All right, I am drinking right now. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hey, hi, Spencer. This is Alex.
Alex, hey, man, what can I do for you?
I called like 10 months ago. I'm from San Diego, Tijuana. I don't know if you remember.
That's right. So now you're going to bitch at me about the Mexico joke. I was just joking.
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I'm not a sensitive guy.
All right, good. So what's happening?
Well, first, I would like to tell you I don't go to the forums that much, like once or twice every 3 or 4 months. So I had no idea you were going through a tough time. I'm sorry for the loss of your father.
Oh, thank you for that, man. I appreciate that.
So I had no idea. I just went through the forum like 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. So what's up? And
I'm calling because I have some good news. I just discovered a way to beat hair loss.
Oh, how's that? Shave your head? Not think about it?
Are you ready for the high-tech answer?
I am.
Let's hear it. I just don't give a fuck anymore.
You won, dude.
Done.
Yeah, it's over.
I like this guy.
Really, really high tech, huh?
Yeah, you beat it.
Congratulations.
Exactly. Thank you. I guess Joe T's on the other line. I don't call the show too much, so I have no idea who's on or who's off. So nice to meet you, Joe.
Yeah, this is Joe Tillman, who is he's been a huge part of the online world for many, many years. Works for Hassan Wong. He's the original hair transplant mentor, the first guy that actually ever documented his journey through surgical hair restoration on the internet. He's the guy that started it all, as far as, in my view, as far as really documenting his hair transplant on the internet.
Oh, wow.
So,
nice to meet you, Joe.
Nice to meet you. What was your name, Alex?
My name is Alex, yes.
Well, Alex, listen, it's great news, though, that you've overcome this by just saying, fuck it.
Yes, well, one of the reasons that it helped me decide was this past Saturday, I went to Searing in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
I had an appointment to see what was the latest with my hair loss. The last time I went to a doctor was 2008 with Brandon Ross.
Right.
And I'm really CC when it comes to surgery, so he only performed FUT, so I wasn't really interested in that.
Right.
And now with all the news of FUE and scarlet hair surgery and whatever, I kind of came back on the bandwagon. And so I said, well, let's give it a try again. So I went to Newport Beach, and very professional. You know, I like the clinic a lot, and but I brought a gun to a gunfight.
Right.
My gun was Spencer Kobren.
And so what happened?
As soon as I told him I was a follower to you, I think changed a lot of things. You know, they probably said, you know, this is not another naive hair loss sufferer.
Right.
So we better be careful what we say. And but they were very professional. You know.
All right, so tell me. So I'm curious. So I mean, how did it change things when you said, okay, that I'm a fan of the show? Did they all of a sudden change the direction? Were they trying to sell you something and they changed, or was it?
No. What I did is that's the first thing that I brought as soon as I sat down, because you know with that way I said, you know, I'm going to cut a lot of things.
Right.
Because he told me, okay, so you probably know a lot about hair loss, and I said yes. I've been doing my due diligence for the last 7 years, so I just came to see how much hair do I need. That's basically the reason that I went there, because I already knew about the process and medicines and whatever, you know.
Now, what did he say?
So I went there, and well, he obviously smiled when I told him I was your follower. So, so you know, he told me some basic things, you know, especially about the clinic, how much they did in business, and blah blah blah. And so I think that he was a sales guy, and the doctor came, but he wasn't sharing. It was, I think, I don't know if his assistant or something, Dr. Verona or something.
Right, Dr. Verona. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy too. He's really good at what he does.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So he explained everything, because one of the reasons, or my main issues, I think the issue that I've already had, you know, can I get a hair surgery without the meds? Right. You know, and the doctor was, you know, really forward to it. He told me, you know, if you don't like to take medicines, because they're selling also, I believe, a quarter of the dosage of Propecia. Yeah. Which they told me is virtually no side effects, and 85% of the results are the same, something like that.
Well, you know, it's actually, I mean, I'm more in line to, you know, I think if you're going to be using a really small dose of finasteride, I believe that you need to kind of load your body up and then kind of go into a smaller dose. But there is evidence showing that even taking a quarter of a 1 milligram tablet of finasteride benefits guys compared to not taking it at all. So, and obviously, it much less of a chance of side effects.
Exactly, and he told me, you know, even if you don't want to take this one, then you can try minoxidil and perhaps hair laser, because what you're going to be transplant is going to stay there, right? But you might lose the other part, perhaps in 5 or 10 years.
Right. So here's my question to you: what did he say he needed surgically? What did he suggest?
He told me first. I thought I needed more grafts. I thought I needed like 3,000, and he told me I need 1,600 to 1,800 grafts to the front part.
Well, good. He wasn't trying to oversell you, so that's a good sign.
Oh no. He told me, you know, he knew, because I already knew what I want. I don't want to. I like temples, and I didn't want to lower my hairline, you know, when I was 17 or anything. Right. You know, I like temples and everything, so I'm very conservative about that. And so he told me, you know, you need these 1,800 follicles, and if you don't want to take the medicine, well, this is just a waiting game. If perhaps you have to come back in 5 years or 10 to, you know, another procedure, which with the way things are moving technologically, perhaps there's something better in the future that, you know. Now,
did you explain to him that you were only interested in FUE?
Exactly. That's what because I remember that you said one time, if you're under 40, the best way to go is FUE.
Well, what I said was that it really depends on the patient, but I do believe if I say under 35, if you're under 35 years old and you are not totally committed to having a linear scar on the back of your head, but you want to have surgical hair restoration, the only way to go is FUE. Yeah. So
He told me I was a good candidate because I have a really thick hair on my donor area, on the sides and on the back. And she told me, so your hair's going to grow really thick. And but when he told me I needed 1,800 follicles, is it right? Or I'm confused with the names. And that's when I decided that I don't give a fuck anymore. Because I said, 1,800 means that I'm not, my hair loss is not that bad.
And you know what? I think that's actually, I think he did you a real favor, because this is the thing. A lot of guys are going to go in there and they're going to say, listen, because they could place 3,000 grafts or even 4,500 grafts. They could find a place for it, and they can charge you for it. And I think that's interesting that you said that. The fact that he suggested a lower number, it can mean two things. One, the guy could be erring on the side of caution. He could be more conservative than other doctors. But two, he could really mean that you don't really have that much hair loss, and this is all that we would provide you with. And that's how you took it, and obviously you know your own hair. I think that's pretty empowering. That shows you that, hey, you know what? I don't have that. My hair loss isn't that bad. 1,800 grafts isn't going to make such a huge difference in my appearance anyway, so why even go through with it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and since I'm reluctant to take medicines, and he was talking about these preventing measures, like minoxidil or hair laser, and I was sitting there and I was, do I really want to go this every day? Like getting this thing on my scalp or hair laser or...
Dude, if you can deal with it, if you could say fuck it, then you won. You really have. And I would say, see how your life goes. Surgery is always going to be there. Medications is going to be there. See how you progress. If you stay the same for a while or shave your head, whatever it is, go on with your life and just see how you do. And that's it. All right. Listen, dude, I'm going to take a couple more phone calls before we close up shop, but I appreciate you taking the time to call. It's always a pleasure. And I'm glad that you kind of realize that, you know what, for you, it's not such a big deal, and you can live your life just the way you are.
Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
All right. Thank you. And I'll call just once in a while to say hi.
Call anytime, dude. You're always welcome to call in. I appreciate it.
All right.
Take care.
Nice to meet you, Joe, and take care, Spencer.
All right. Take it easy.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
888-659-3727. This guy's in Mexico. I thought he was going to call me to ball me out because I talked about who goes to Mexico anymore. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, it's Joe from Boston calling. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening? So Joe, it's Boston Bob, right?
Well, I know. Yeah, this is Joe from Boston.
Joe from Boston. What's happening? How are you?
Not much, buddy. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good. I just wanted to talk about what you guys were talking about earlier when you opened up the show tonight with the FUT and the FUE.
Yeah.
And I had a few procedures done, but they were strip procedures.
Yeah.
And my doctor actually does both. So the last procedure that I had done was on my crown. And I was almost pretty much begging him to do the FUE, because it just sounds more easier and sexier.
Right.
So, anyways, he pretty much told me that you get a lot more bang for the buck with the strip. And he had told me that I would definitely need the strip, and I wasn't going to get the density with the FUE. And I saved a lot of money as well. And I just kind of feel lucky that he had, told me that, because looking back at the scar now on this last one that he did, it's excellent. And
but that's the thing. You already had a scar. Okay, if you have the scalp laxicity, that's always a tough word for me to pronounce for some reason. Then
it's still tough for you to.
if you are a candidate for strip and you already have the scar, all they do is remove the other scar. You already have it. So why not get the most bang for your buck? Why not get the best possible outcome as far as graft yield? I
agree with that.
Yeah.
But it's just, I really didn't know too much going into it, and I was almost pretty much begging him for it. I was going to pay more money because I just, and I just feel lucky that he was up and honest with me and telling me, look, Joe, I'm not going to do the FUE on you, number one. Number two, like we were just talking, you're going to get more bang for the buck.
And the truth is, the doctor would have made more. He would have made more money. He wouldn't have had to pay his staff as much, and he would have made more money doing FUE on you.
I know he would have.
You're absolutely right. And let me throw something in here, playing devil's advocate. About you said it won't be as dense. That's not necessarily true. Coming from an FUT guy, a strip guy, it all depends on the practitioner. I mean, a graft is a graft. The density depends on how close they're put together.
Right.
And there is a growth rate, of course, that you got to consider. So, all things. If he's saying that that the survival isn't as high, then that's different. But assuming both have this, roughly the same survival rate, then density is just it's irrelevant whether it's FUE or FUT. That's not part of the equation.
Right. But it is as far as the sheer number of grafts he may have been able to get out with the strip, as opposed to in a shorter period of time, and also in a non-blinded fashion like you do with FUE. I guess in his mind, he really felt that you're going to get you're going to get more bang for your buck, and you're going to have a at least in his hands, he believed you'd have a better outcome. And that's the bottom line.
I see a lot of the FUE. I see a lot of the FUE, and it seems like it's mostly done in like the temples and in the front, and they're just not that much of large sessions.
You know what? That's not true. There are large sessions. There's a lot of guys who are really doing great work in Europe. Obviously, here in the U.S., you have John Cole and a couple of other guys who are really concentrating on FUE. But the European guys, you got a guy by the name of Reddy in the UK. You have Basanga. You have a couple of Lorenzo, a couple of Turkish guys who are Dogane and this guy from Asmed. I can't remember his name, but I mean,
Dr. Cry.
It's really, really great work being done. And large sessions of FUE. So there are guys who've really created this infrastructure, and they've taken the time to really, evolve their practices to the point where they're able to get these great outcomes purely with FUE. However, with that said, you're a guy that's already had several strips. So what's the difference? As long as your scalp can take it. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, because you see this every day, and you're a guy who's had multiple FUTs. As long as your scalp can take it and you have enough donor, then why wouldn't you have it done?
There's no reason not to. I mean, but Joe said something really interesting. He said it sounded sexy, right? And that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, it sounds sexy to have FUE for sure, no question about it. And that's I can see how that would increase the desirability of that for Joe to get it done. But ultimately, by having this last strip that you had, and I don't know if it's the last one you can have. I don't know if you have more hair loss that you want to have addressed. But what better way to finish up your experience with FUT than getting a scar that you just said you're super happy about?
That's right.
And I'm assuming a nice level of growth as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't really been a year yet, but I still have a few more months, and that'll bring me back. That's going to bring me to my next point with Propecia. I last time I spoke with you, Spencer, we talked about how I kind of had like a little bad negative experience on the finasteride. I was taking the generic. It was Dr. Reddy's, and I took it for about 4 months. And I think I told you I was starting to get like the man boobs and stuff like that. And I put weight on, and you were telling me a lot about, watch my sodium intake and stuff like that. But I had went off of it. I just didn't like what it was doing to me. But then I had a talk with my doctor about it, and we discussed it. And he had convinced me somehow to go on the Propecia, the name brand, and to do it every other day. The 1 milligram. And I've done that now for 4 months, and I haven't had one problem.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. And I read, I read somewhere that somebody was saying like the inactive ingredients with the generic and the brand name, even though it's pretty much the same or close, there is a slight difference where some people can have different side effects from a name brand and a generic.
And I agree. I go with the company that actually did the clinical trials. That's how I feel about it. If I'm going to take a benzodiazepine, if I need to take like Xanax or something, if I'm under a lot of stress, I don't mind going with a generic. It's basically very similar. But if I'm doing something that's, in my view, life changing, that could really affect the quality of my life, and if I'm taking something for the long term, I want to go with the brand, even if my insurance doesn't pay for it, which in my case, I never sent it in through my insurance because I started taking ProScore at such a young age. Obviously, in doing what I do, I had to pay for it cash. I didn't want to be involved in any type of insurance fraud,
Sure.
So for me, I am a true believer of brand name products, especially when it comes to drugs like this. And I'm glad that your doctor convinced you to give it another shot and you're not having any side effects.
Well, I did take the Propecia name brand years ago.
Yeah.
And I really did do well on it, but I stopped because I think I had told you a while back that, I was taking it when I was about 28, 29 years old, and I'm 41 now, and I stopped for about 8 years, and I lost a lot of ground. And I stopped only because I was reading about what could happen, and I know it was a stupid mistake on my part. But anyways, getting back to it, now I'm back on the brand name after trying a generic that really I wasn't really liking what was happening. Now I'm back on the brand. It just seems like my body, knock on wood, goes better with the brand.
Well, this is a very important story that you're conveying, and it's very important that other people listen to this, because this is something that I have been saying. This is something that Joe Tillman has been saying forever. And there's no doubt in my mind that, in general, people seem to do better on the brand name finasteride. Just at least the guys, anecdotally, who have contacted me over these last 15 years. I'm spitting on my microphone. So, I'm glad you're doing well, man. I'm going to take one more call, or maybe two, but then I got to close up shop. So listen, dude, thanks so much.
Your time, and I'm sorry, Joe, if I cut you off.
Oh no, dude!
No worries, man. Congratulations on your result and your experience with Propecia. It's
all right. Thanks, guys.
Story. Absolutely.
Good luck, man. Take care.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right. Thanks a lot. Let's see who this is. You're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Jerry. Bald Jerry.
Bald Jerry, what's happening? Now, are you Bald Jerry just for this show and Transgender Jerry for the free for all?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess whatever. Yeah, I think I'm just Jerry in the free for all usually, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to call you Jerry. I just want to call you Jerry. Is that cool?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Why do I have to label you as Bald Jerry or Transgender Jerry? Why can't you just be Jerry?
I'm not really bald, so it doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
But you call me Bald Jerry anyways.
Yeah.
So I think I just originally did that show for the name. But, I just, I just called in to, I don't know, I just kind of, I feel like Joe, I know that Joe's been a big topic of the show today.
Well, Joe has been a big topic of the show for a long time. Joe has been a part of what we do.
Yeah, and I just, I think that lately, Joe's been on the show for 15 years, right? About 15 years?
Yeah, Joe has...
He's not really fired. He's not fired, though, is he?
But I don't even understand fired. He was never hired. I never hired Joe from Staten Island. Joe, he never worked for my company. He's a caller, just like you, Jerry. He just happens to call every single week. So I gave him an opening. I gave him an opening. I thought...
Respect, yeah. But there was, hi, the Eminem song with Joe from Staten Island. It wasn't just a regular caller. Every time it was I've got a caller on hold for 20 minutes. So
well, of course not. He became a whack packer for the show. There was a guy, I had a producer by the name of Dean J. D'Amelio, who is the associate producer for the Tom Leykis show now, who, when I was doing the show out of Westwood One, when I first moved to California, he's like, this guy is effing insane. He needs to have his own open. I'm like, all right, put something together. He put that thing together, and I guess the rest is history. So, yes, you're right. He wasn't just a regular caller, but he wasn't hired by the Bald Truth. So when you say, is he fired? I can't fire the guy. I never hired the guy.
Yeah, I think that, honestly, I think that it seems like it's only, I think that the chat room and I think maybe myself and I think some of the people kind of changed the dynamic. Is that right? It kind of changed when the chat room came about. Is that right? The dynamic?
Well, I'll tell you, yeah. What changed is when I chose to get off the air, when I was on XM radio, I said, you know what? I have an opportunity now just to bring the show online or to continue with the bullshit that I had to deal with when I was on satellite radio. I said, I'm going to give this a shot. And I did. So I had a private chat room for a while, which was good. I mean, there's a lot of like normal people just enjoying the chat, whatever it is. Then Andrew convinced me to basically sign with GFQ and to use his chat room. And this is GFQ's chat room. I have nothing to do with it. Somehow it turned into a complete insane mess. And yeah, things have definitely changed. There's no doubt. And that is around the time when Joe started to change his attitude. That's around the time when Joe started to talk about or come out about his, transgender feelings, the fact that he liked chicks with cranks. All of this stuff was not part of the show before. Joe was just a guy who would call in, talk about his hair loss. He was not nearly as depressed as he has been the last 4 years. So he's kind of devolved as, I'm trying to evolve the show.
Yeah, I can't really say because I didn't listen to the show before there was a chat room available.
Right.
But my perception is it is kind of like the enabling that, has kind of gone on. But, and I think personally I feel a little bit, I think I do that a little bit, but I think
a little bit. I definitely think you do it a lot, and not because you're a bad guy. You think it's fun. You enjoy it. You enjoy hearing and seeing Joe's reaction. There's no doubt about it. A lot of guys who kind of egg Joe on enjoy that because it's almost like you're watching an oddity, and it's unfortunate, but it's true.
Yeah, but it's like that to some degree. But I consider Joe a friend, and the same token, you know what I mean. I did
so do I.
meet him in person. And I do talk to him a lot, so. Let
me ask you a question. Think of any other radio host, because there was a time when I was actually on the radio, and for many years. How many people actually take the time to get to know somebody, even if it's a whack packer, really get to know somebody from the broadcast? And I had empathy for Joe. I felt that this guy needed, at the time, especially when I met him, he needed a friend. He connected to the broadcast because hair loss affected him to such a degree that he had never known anyone who took it as seriously as I did. So there was an instant connection there. And I just felt for the guy. I really did. And it wasn't like, I pitied him. That's why I ended up going out with him. I liked him. He was much more together when I first met him. Completely different person, by the way, than the Joe you met.
And I've heard that, and I know that he was your first caller on the show, but you guys also had kind of a relationship before that. So, right? It wasn't.
Well, it wasn't really a relationship. He had called my 800 number, which rang in my home at the time, and he had spoke to me. We spoke about his hair loss. We spoke about the book, and he was excited to know that there was going to be a show. As far as the relationship, if I can be completely candid, Joe maybe have blown that a little out of proportion. When he spoke to you. Whatever relationship we had was kind of like built, in my view, on the radio show. So, we had spoken a couple of times before the broadcast, and yes, he was my first caller, but, we weren't hanging out before the show.
I think personally, my perception is I think that there's some people, you probably got a lot of complaints over, the past couple of years about him, but I think honestly, I really do think that way more people like him than hate him. I just think those people that don't like him are kind of anal anyways, and they're the ones that complain a lot. You know what I mean? So that's my opinion of, you kind of just have to, even though the people, it's kind of like you said that in with the hair transplant community, right? There's certain people that write a bad review and they never write the good reviews, right? Like you get way more bad reviews as a person just because the complainers are going to be way more vocal.
I agree with that, but I guess the bottom line is, after 15 years, I really believe that the show needs to evolve in a different direction. And Joe is always welcome to call in, but I think he has this sense of entitlement that I don't understand. I really don't. He gets this passive-aggressive thing on the air, and I'm like, I can't even believe it. This is coming out of Joe's mouth. So, I'm a human being too, and you have to realize what I believe that I have done for this guy over the years, which is a lot more than most people would do, and everything that I've offered him and all the help and all that stuff. I don't know if he really appreciates that. I think he believes that he's entitled to be part of the show, and that's not the case. And that's all I have to say about that.
When you have a diehard fan base, it probably creates that mentality. You know what I mean? That like you do start to feel that if you get these heavy fans, you probably do get a little bit of entitlement. I'm guessing that's kind of where it came. And the chat room probably allowed that. You know what I mean? For people to
absolutely. But listen, we're going to move on. We're going to see what's up. Joe is always welcome to call into this broadcast. Joe is a friend of the Bald Truth forever, and he's a friend of mine. He's just got to get past whatever attitude that he's got, because I have no attitude with him. I have no issue with him.
Personally, I know that people think Joe got fired, but I would like to resign from my position on the Bald Truth, and I'd like Joe to have that position.
Well, you know what? If you had a position, I would say that's admirable. Listen, dude, I appreciate the call, Jerry. Always do. Right. Take care.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Jesus Christ, what is it with this Joe guy?
Wow. I had nothing to contribute on that one. It was interesting to hear where it was going.
What are you going to do? Listen, Jerry and Joe are now fast friends, and I get it, and it is what it is. I'm going to take one more phone call, and then I know it's 7 o'clock, or it's after 7, but then we're going to close up shop. I want to thank you, Joe Tillman, for hanging out for the last 2 hours and doing the broadcast, even though it's just on the phone. Hopefully we can get you in studio, whatever, next week, and we can kind of figure out that issue that we had. So let's see who this is. Hey, man, you're on the air. Last caller of the night.
Yeah, hi, Spencer.
Joe, what's happening, man?
I've been
Joe
crying hysterically, man. I've been on hold for 2 hours. I don't know if you're deliberately ignoring my calls or what. I'm just devastated.
How can I deliberately ignore your calls? I screen my own calls.
You're reading my number. I've been on hold since 8 o'clock.
Dude, I'm not reading any number. That's insanity, right? So that right there, that's paranoia. But welcome. What's up?
But normally I call up 10 minutes, like 20 minutes before the show. I'm one of the first callers, but I don't know.
So now, okay, all right. Now, see, I'm going to get pissed off. So now you're accusing me of somehow ignoring your call. I mean, what's going on, Joe? Come on. Why is this happening? Think about the years that I have given you on this broadcast, and the fact that you have this sense of entitlement that I don't even understand.
You misunderstand. I really think you're misunderstanding a lot of things. With all due respect to you, I really think you're misunderstanding where I'm coming from.
Well, I'm listening.
All I wanted to do was to be your friend and to take you out to dinner. Is that so terrible?
No, it's not so terrible. And we've done that. We've done that before. So I don't understand what the issue is.
I don't think I'm entitled to anything. I mean, I just want to be your friend. I consider you a friend, and I enjoy doing the show. You're misunderstanding everything, Spencer. It's really put me in a very depressed state. I mean, I consider you one of my best friends. I've known you for 15 years. You're like a brother to me.
Well, that's the thing, Joe. Like even what you're just saying right now, how I put you into a depressed state. To me, if he really had these feelings and he really thought, okay, well, this relationship's really important, you always give me the sense of pressure that I somehow am I'm a major contributor to your happiness, and without your connection to this broadcast, or without your connection to me in some way, that it's just, it affects your life in a negative way. That's unfair to me. I do my best as a talk show host and as a friend, someone who met you through my show, to show you respect and to allow you to be a part of this broadcast, even when I believe that it wasn't benefiting the show. I don't think you understand that. I don't think that you understand that I have gone beyond the call of duty because of our relationship.
I understand that, Spencer, and I appreciate that. You don't see. I don't think you're misunderstanding the whole thing. I mean, I feel terrible. I didn't take your father's funeral. I didn't even know about it. I feel terrible about that.
Well, you shouldn't feel terrible about it every day. Well, you shouldn't feel terrible about it. It's not your responsibility, and I kept it very, very private.
Well, I consider you like family, man. I would have, not that I would have loved to have been there. You know what I mean. I think you know what I mean. I respect your father, Jack, who I spoke to. I never met, but I spoke on the phone a couple times.
Well, I appreciate that, Joe. Listen.
And I'm trying to live with that every day that I wasn't there.
There's nothing to live with. There's nothing to live with. Joe, listen to me. You always be a part of the Bald Truth. You're always welcome to call this broadcast. But I cannot allow you to dominate the program anymore because the show has to move in a different direction. We need to have a positive spin to everyone who's dealing with this crazy disease. We want people. We want people to really be helped, not just be mired in their depression. And that's unfortunately what you bring to the show a lot.
But Spencer, don't you agree that every week I give the news, upbeat news every week? I present the.
No, I don't believe there's anything. I don't believe you give upbeat news. I believe that you provide information that you glean off of from the forums and from stuff that's obviously in the news, but it's not necessarily upbeat. It's good stuff. It's
positive stuff.
It's good stuff that may eventually come down the pike, which you are welcome to bring to the show, on a weekly basis if you want to call in. But I cannot dedicate as much time as I have for all these years, especially since I've gotten off the radio. I've dedicated a lot more time to you on the internet because it is not positive in general for the show. You repeat yourself a million times about the same depressing stuff. I'm just telling you the truth as a friend. You want to be a part of things, you're welcome to be a part of things. You will always be a part of the Bald Truth. But we need to go in a different direction. Do you realize, when you listen to the last two shows, do you hear the amount of calls we get compared to having you on the program for the first 15 minutes and then all of a sudden, people just, they drop off the lines. It's because you depress people, dude.
But I give so much positive news out of what's going on, like Taiwan University. I could take another hour to go over all the things that are happening.
Now you see, you go into the chat room, read what people are saying. Listen to me, Joe. Do you think I'm saying this to hurt you?
No.
Okay. Then that's it. You're welcome to call the show. Bring news to the broadcast. You're welcome to call the show. I will take your call, just like I take everybody else's call. Every week. I do not think that it's the best thing for the broadcast to open up with Joe from Staten Island at this point. That's it. And I think you should be accepting of that. You should say, "Hey, look, Spencer's my friend. This is the direction he wants to take his broadcast."
Well, you're in charge of the broadcast, not me. But I find it very unusual that after 15 years you've come to this conclusion.
Listen, Joe, what can I tell you? I love you, man. What am I going to say? How am I going to get this through your head? Things have to change. Life changes. We have to evolve. There's a whole new crop of hair loss sufferers, and everything in entertainment, everything in this medium of internet broadcasting, everything is changing. You know, you got to keep people's attention. It's not like it was in the old days of radio. You know, we don't have a captured audience here. We have people who have the opportunity to move on and listen and watch a million different fucking things. They're not sitting in their car, tuned into their favorite FM talk station and just listening to me because I'm on the air. They have to choose to come here as opposed to being captured in their car like they were years ago. Joe Tillman, do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, am I making sense here? Am I crazy?
No, you're making sense. I mean, you know, Joe brings good information to the show, but you know, I noticed today it's like there's so many phone calls that came through, right? And it was it's good to mix things up, variety, right?
Absolutely.
But Joe, I give cutting edge news of treatments that are coming down the pike. This is all I talk about. What's happening in the future, all the things going on at Taiwan University.
Let me ask you a question, Joe. For all the years you've done that, what has come to the table? Joe, you there? All right, we lost
Joe Tillman, or
no? Joe from Staten Island. By the way, I did not hang up on Joe. Joe lost Joe's phone dropped. But I mean, listen, I'm doing a radio show here or an internet broadcast. Why do I even have to, you know, entertain this?
Well, it's look, it's like this. I mean, I can see, you know, I'm reading the chat and people are, you know, chanting for Joe to come on, but you have a responsibility to everyone else that's listening.
That's right.
And you know, I can see how, you know, you're talking about, or we were talking about earlier about having him on and he was part of the show, but you want to have things, you know, going into a different direction. And he's taking this too personally.
Of course he is.
Obviously. I mean, it's
look, if I didn't love the guy, I wouldn't have allowed this to happen for 15 years. If I didn't have,
if you didn't love the guy, you wouldn't be talking to him about it now.
That's right.
You know, you would just.
This is a show. This is a show. I'm 18 minutes over time here, and I'm trying to talk Joe from Staten Island off the fucking ledge because he thinks he can no longer, you know, he can't be a part of the show the way that he was before. Things are changing.
Well, no, he thought that he couldn't be a part of the show at all.
Yeah, which is bullshit.
It's like,
that's not true.
Where did this come from? I'm listening to this, and like you said earlier, you couldn't have fired him because you never hired the guy.
That's right.
And you never said he couldn't call in. You never said he couldn't do the news. But what you did say is you're changing it up to where it's not going to dominate the first, 15, 20 minutes of the or basically be its own segment.
That's right. I want people to call in and ask their questions like they have been for the last 2 weeks. I want people to feel comfortable enough not to be, depressed by Joe from Staten Island and to talk about their positive experiences like we've been getting. I think this may be Joe. I'm going to pawn him back up. Joe, is that you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hang up. I cut off. I'm on a cell phone.
That's okay.
Let me ask you one question, so you don't mind, Spencer. Have your emails been positive about me or negative about me? I mean,
I would say that the vast majority of emails concerning you are negative. However, you do have positive emails where people really do love, you being part of the show. Now, I never listened to anybody, Joe. I never listened to my producers. I never listened to my GMs when I was on the radio or program directors, and basically said, listen, this is my broadcast. The guy wants to call in. I think he has something to offer, and I also think that it's important for guys to listen to it, who are suffering, to see a guy who's in much worse shape. And I've told you that before, Joe. That's why I've kept you on the air. Okay? So I haven't listened to all the negative stuff, but there's plenty of negative stuff, and I'm not just making that up. It's not like they think you're a bad person. They just, you depress people, dude. That's it.
Well, most LO sufferers are depressed. I mean, they don't need me to add to the depression. They're already depressed.
They don't need you. They want some positive stuff. That's the thing.
But don't I give up? upbeat news every week of all things that are happening in the hair loss world?
I don't think it's upbeat. I think some of it's interesting. I don't think it's always upbeat. But it doesn't mean you can't do that, Joe, okay? But please, you're really crowbarring your way into this, and it's like, just, give me a fucking break. You really need to. I mean, if you consider yourself a friend of mine, why would you want to pressure me like this?
I'm not pressuring you at all, Spence. All I want to do is take you out to dinner. That was about it, man. I'm not a stalker or something like that who emails you every day, calls you 5 times a day, am I?
No, you see, and again, Joe, tell me, what do I do? I'm trying to reason with this guy on the level that I would speak to anybody I can't even think. And, and he's bringing up the fact that he wants to take me out for dinner. Dude, I appreciate that. We'll go out to dinner again. We've already gone out like 4 times.
Hey, Joe. Joe, can I interject here? Let me ask you a question. What would you like for Spencer to do?
Nothing. There's nothing for Spencer to do now. There's nothing at all. I mean, it's his show. He does whatever he wants. I'm not. I have nothing to say about what he does.
Okay.
I just want to call in and give the news like I've always been given, and that's it. That's what I've always done. I don't stay on the show for 2 hours. Other people call up. I don't talk for the whole 2 hours. I talk maybe 15 minutes.
Look, this is
you've been talking for the last 20 minutes. Both of you have been talking about the last 20 minutes about how...
See, that's it. I got the 20 minutes out of you, right?
That's right. And you always do, Joe, right? You always fucking do. You got the last 24 minutes out of me. Listen, this is what we're gonna do. Let's make this arrangement on the air. You call in. You call in live the second hour of the broadcast to give your news. Are you cool with that?
The second hour?
Yes.
You mean after 9?
After 9 o'clock. You can call
I'm sorry, what?
You can call at 9 o'clock to give the news. I will make sure that there's a line open. I will drop a line, if all the lines are lit, to make sure that you get through.
Well, can you read my phone number? You can read my phone number from your
it's funny. I can. I have to actually, there's a certain button here to push, which I never use, but I can figure it out. But right now I don't see anything. So I could figure that out. But yes, I can read your phone number if I take the time to learn how to use this thing.
Well, it starts with 843. You know my phone number is. I mean, obviously you know my phone number is.
Look, all right? Is that a deal? Can you handle that?
That's fine, but that's my point. I just wanted to help you out, a little bit with your father, and be there for you a little bit. That's what I really wanted to do, man. That's what.
Well, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, no one was able to help me out. Everyone is very generous in saying that they can help, but the truth is, it's something that I had to deal with myself, and I did.
Well, let me say this: 30 seconds. You're a great son, man. To spend the final few months of your father's life with him. You're a very rare person to do that. Most sons wouldn't give a damn. That's a fact.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Joe. All right, and I'm glad that we resolved this situation, and stop getting Jerry to be a pit bull and bug the shit out of me to keep you on the show.
Well, Jerry is me and I have become good friends. You know that.
I know, you guys.
And Dave Artista, we email each other every day. Now Dave wants my phone number.
Jesus.
I'll probably give it to him.
Oh my God.
I have to be very careful to give my phone number to Spencer. You know that.
I do.
Jerry has proven himself to be a good person. Now, Dave, I think is a good person, so I have to give him my phone number.
I think they're both good people.
Can I have your number, Joe?
But Joe Tillman wants your number.
Can I have your number, Joe?
Well, if I said it on the air now, how many phone calls are you, friends? I'm setting my number on the air now.
I'm not asking for it on the air, buddy.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I'm out of here. I got to go. I'm a half an hour over.
All right. See, I still got 30 minutes out of you, Spencer.
Right? Son of a bitch.
You can't win, can you?
Son of a bitch.
Again, from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry about your dad. You know that, man.
Well, dude, I appreciate that. And Joe, this is for you.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is Excuse me. My name is.
Would you like to may I reiterate it?
My name is.
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is.
Joe from Staten Island.
All right, Joe. Now leave me the fuck alone. All right.
Thank you, Spencer. I will say this quickly. Wherever your father is, I'm sure he's enjoying his Schlitz and dentine now. May God bless him. I'm sure he's in a much better place, Spencer.
All right, Joe. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Good night, man.
You know, he just keeps pulling me back in, this guy. I don't know what I'm going to do.
7:30, man.
Yeah.
7:30.
All right. Well, listen, Joe Tillman, thank you so much for hanging out. You can check out Joe Tillman's website at hairtransplantmentor.com, where you can kind of see his journey, what this guy's been through, and the reason why he's the expert that he is. This is not bullshit. He's not some guy trying to sell you something. He's a guy that's really been through the mill, and that's why I have wanted him to become more a part of what we do, because I think it's important that guys, not only learn from your mistakes, Joe, but you're in the trenches day in and day out, and you could really help a lot of people.
Thanks, Spencer. I appreciate that, and yeah, I mean it's always great to be part of the show, and I'm glad to have that honor. And look, the show today, I'm happy with the show. It was fun. It had some great callers, and I think overall it turned out to be positive the way that you want.
And I appreciate that, and that's the way we're going to keep it. And if Joe is still listening, if it becomes depressing when you call in, I'm hanging up on your ass. That's just the way that it is. All right, guys, listen.
Or anyone.
All right, man, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for calling in. Guys, let me give out the websites, thebaldtruth.com, of course, to check out archive versions or archive shows of The Bald Truth. We're going to be updating, believe it or not. I know that the site has not been updated since the Civil War, but we're going to be making some changes to the site in the next couple of months. And a lot of changes are happening with The Bald Truth. You're going to be able to listen and view the program in a lot more places online. And we're also going to be getting a lot more, I guess, mainstream notoriety this year, which is exciting. So, stay tuned for all that information. Also, check out, if you want some basic information on hair loss and what to do and what to avoid, you could always check out the American Hair Loss Association website at americanhairloss.org. And if you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, you can go to our online message forum, which is baldtruthtalk.com. Remember, take what you read on the forums with a grain of salt. There's a lot of people out there that, present themselves as being knowledgeable when in fact they don't know shit. So really read between the lines. Check your sources before you buy any product or service. And if you have any questions, check with the American Hair Loss Association. Of course, again, I'll give out the website, americanhairloss.org. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.